Hello, welcome to Immigration Counselling and Management class. And we'll be looking at immigration counseling and advisory techniques today. And in doing that, we will look at client intake procedure and consultation framework. We'll assess the eligibility for study, work, travel, and also immigration routes. We'll match clients to appropriate immigration pathway. We'll also be looking at advising clients to based on country-specific requirements. We also look at handling complex cases and multiple application options. We also look at communication skills for counseling diverse clients. And lastly, we look at record keeping and case management system. Let's look at client intake procedure. When we talk about client intake procedure, it's our process. It's actually a consultation framework which forms the foundation of effective immigration advisory services. And they allow counselors to be able to collect essential information, understand clients' goal, and also assess eligibility and establish a structured plan for guiding clients through the immigration process. And the purpose of this intake is actually the first step to gather information, assess goal, and build a professional relationship. When you do this intake, it helps to have to gather information, to assess goals, and also to build professional relationship. And key steps in the intake process include initial contact, which is providing overview of services and fee. Also, the next step is information gathering, where you'll be able to gather or use structured form to be able to collect personal, educational, and also financial data. And the next is client profiling, and this deals with analyzing of data to create a comprehensive client summary. And the next step is preliminary assessment, which is conducting of an initial eligibility review. And lastly is documentation and checklist and documentation checklist, whereby you'll be able to provide a list of required documents. And with that, you'll be able to know which um, will be submitted or has been submitted or should be submitted. Looking at the structured consultation framework, a consultation framework provides structure for how counseling sessions are conducted, ensuring consistency and professionalism. And key components include the session planning, which is where you set a clear agenda. The next component is structured discussion, where review, background, objective, and also eligibility system. You it's At this point we talk about review background objectives and also eligibility systematically. uh, you review it systematically. And the next one is information delivery, which is you explain procedures, requirements, and also timeline in plain language. The next component is decision making guidance, where you help clients to be able to evaluate their options. And lastly is the follow up plan, which outlines next step and schedule for future meeting. For the eligibility assessment, this is actually a critical step in immigration or immigration counseling, as it determines which migration routes are realistically available for a client. And thorough assessments ensure that clients are advised on pathways that makes their qualification skills, financial capacity, and personal circumstances, reducing the likelihood of application rejection and also unnecessary delay. And this process combines a detailed review of client data and also knowledge of clients or country specific immigration rule policy and also requirements. And key factors um, assessed in the eligibility assessment include the educational background in terms of the degree, diplomas, credential recognition, Another is the professional experience in terms of work history, skills, and relevance. Another is financial capacity, which is ability to cover tuition, living cost, and fee. Another is language proficiency in terms of test score, and another aspect to be assessed is the age and health, where age limits and medical requirements will be put into consideration in this. And there is also a legal history that will be assessed, which is prior refusal, overstay, or criminal records as such. Steps in conducting an eligibility assessment include document review, that is the collection of and verification of all relevant documents like transcripts, passports, financial statements. Also, profile analysis will be carried out, or is the next step to be carried out, which is comparing the client's profile against the criteria for various pathways. Another is pathway matching, which is identification or identifying which specific program, identifying which specific program or visa are a potential fit. And also, we have the risk identification, which deals with highlighting of potential issues, that is, missing documents or prior refusal. And the last step is the advisory report, which deals with summarizing our findings with clear, actionable recommendations. Now, matching claims to routes as per which way are they to go. The purpose of matching is to align the client profile with the pathway that offers the highest probability of success. And key factors of matching include the client profile, which includes the qualification, the experience, and the goal. Another is the country requirement, which is the eligibility criteria and visa category. Another is client objectives, which is short-term study versus long-term. And the last one is constraints, which is another factor in terms of time, finances, and complexity. And the goal of a client determines the route as shown below. And the first is maybe to further, if the goal is to further education, the potential pathway is the student visa. If it is a long-term work abroad, it's going to be a skilled worker visa. And if it's a short-term experience, it's going to be a working holiday visa. And lastly, if it is a permanent settlement, it's going to be a point-based migration. In advising on country-specific requirements, why it's actually very important. Immigration rules varies dramatically by country, and generic advice is often wrong advice. So you need to tailor it based on country. Now, what counselors must know for each target countries. The first aspect is very important, and which is also very important, is visa category. We've talked about it in the previous slide, where we talk about the types of visa available and their specific eligibility criteria. It is very important to note that as a counselor. Also, there is need to also know the documentation rule for each country, which is accepted formats, translation, and also authentication needs. Also, for there is a need to know the procedural nuance, and this is processing time, the fee, interview requirements, and also quotas. And the last one that is necessary to be known by the counselor for each of the countries is the legal context. And this deals with specific law on work rights, dual citizenship, and the likes. Examples of countries' nuances include for Canada, we talk about the use of a point-based system, which is express um, entry for skilled workers, and as it has provincial nominee program with unique local requirement also. For the United States, it's actually a study visa which requires the SEVP certified schools, and the work visa often need employer sponsorship and labor condition application. And for United Kingdom, it's actually a tiered-based system with strict maintenance fund and sponsorship rules, and policy change frequently. And lastly is Australia, which relies on skilled occupation list and points tests, and it requires genuine temporary entrance and evidence for student visa. And in practice, you need to always verify information from official government uh, portals. Now, handling complex cases. What makes a case complex? First is multiple potential pathway. If there are actually eligibility for both study and work visa, it makes the um, and it complex. And also prior visa refusal or immigration violation. Another is special circumstances like health issue or criminal records. And then the last one is conflicting claims objective. It makes it very complex. And how to manage them? The first one is comprehensive profiling. You need to gather exhaustive details. You need to identify all options, the possible pathway, and also you need to, the risk and benefit analysis must be done. That is assessing of the pro and cons of each. And also the client consultation is very important, where you present findings clearly to facilitate an informed decision. And lastly, strategic planning, where you develop a primary plan and a contingency plan also. Communication skill for diverse clients. Why communication is actually important. Clients come from varied culture, raw and linguistic background, and strong communication builds trust and prevents misunderstanding. Um, the skills that are necessary for communication include active listening, that is, you pay full attention and ask questions where necessary. And another skill is clear and simple languages, not using jargons and explaining step by step. Another is empathy. It's actually a skill that is very important, that is, acknowledging their concern has and emotions. And another is cultural awareness, respecting difference in communication style. And lastly is feedback and verification skill. And um, this is confirming clients' understanding of what has been discussed. Like, can you summarize what we discussed? Tools for effective communication include the use of visual aids, provision of written summaries, where you follow up verbal advice with emails or documents that clients can refer back to. And also, another tool is setting clear expectation, which is being explicit about timeline, cost, and also counselor role versus the client's responsibilities. And also managing of difficult conversations, that is discussing topics like ineligibility or refusal with tact and honesty while offering constructive alternative. Looking at the pillar of practice as per record keeping, this is actually essential. Keeping record ensures all clients' documents are easily accessible and organized. Also, it helps in compliance in meeting legal and ethical obligations for data retention. Also, it helps in accountability, that is the provision of evidence of advice given and action taken. And lastly, it helps in continuity, which allows another counselor to take over a case seamlessly if needed. And what to record, you need to record the client's profile and application form. You need to also there is need for communication logs, the email calls, meeting notes, and the likes. You need to copy all of documents submitted. You need copies of all documents submitted, and you need to also put the tracking of deadline and application status. Also, as per practice, case management system is very important to note also. And a case management system integrates all clients' data to streamline workflow. And key components of an effective system include a centralized client profile, a practical application tracking, task management, that is setting reminder for deadline, and follow-ups, document management, and lastly, reporting, which is generating data on case outcome for quality improvement. And in practice, you need to use secure, encrypted data, digital platform and maintain regular backups. In conclusion, successful counseling relies on structured intake and consultation framework. We've also seen that eligibility assessment and route matching are critical for realistic planning. Also, you've been advised, advice must be tailored to the unique requirements of each destination countries. We've also seen that complex cases require strategic analysis, risk assessment, and also contingency planning. We also looked at strong communication skill builds trust and ensure client understanding. And lastly, record keeping and case management system had a backbone of an organized compliance and also professional practice. These techniques transform my immigration knowledge into effective client-centered action. Thank you.